others gathering for coffee at Jasmine's or preparing for presentations and tests. And this motion might seem like it's really centered in school activity, but in fact, it's actually directed away from it. It's more the impact that they will make after they graduate as employees in your companies and leaders in our community and across this state. Our motto at Carroll College is not for school, but for life. And our mission calls us to prepare students for vocation and enlightenment. And like you, our students are not defined by the tasks they're currently undertaking. While teaching our students to focus on the task at hand, it's important at Carroll that we also teach students about the why behind what they're doing and how what they do matters in a wider scale. We challenge students to think about their roles as leaders in families, in peer groups, in Helena as a community, in the state of Montana, across the country, and in fact across the globe. Students come to Carroll College because we have great academic programs, because Montana is a great place to live, and because they know when they walk off campus they'll be prepared to make a positive impact. I suspect all of you are here today for similar reasons. Many of you are leaders in your field already. Others are preparing to be future leaders of tomorrow. I moved to Montana from Austin, Texas. It's a city that's known for innovation and entrepreneurship. In fact, I think it's known as one of the most entrepreneurial cities in the country. But I can tell you there's just as much opportunity here in Montana as there is in Austin, Texas for those people that want to seize it. There's an attraction to the quality of life that's here. And certainly we have a #1 ranking as the top regional college in the West by U.S. News & World Report for 3 years running at Carroll College, and #3 in value. And I think that also speaks to the quality of life that we see across this state. We have 3 cities in the top 100 of quality of life in the United States. There are great people. It's a wonderful place. I can think of no better place to raise a family, as my wife and I are doing. And our students want to stay here. They want to stay in Montana. They want to stay in Helena. And as we know more about the millennials and those that are graduating and will be graduating in the future years, they're actually choosing the places that they want to live rather than going where the jobs are. And this is a most attractive place for millennials to live. I know that the opportunity you seek is not just manufacturing things or just business, but to make the state of Montana, the United States of America, and our world better through your important work. And I'm grateful that in some small way we can join this effort by hosting all of you here on campus today. I could easily talk about Carroll College all day, but I know there are some things that are other than that you'd like to discuss today. And I'd like to introduce the man who is responsible for putting this small business opportunity workshop together, though I'm sure he's a man who needs no introduction to the people of Montana. Senator Jon Tester is a third-generation Montanan who with his family still farms the same land near Big Sandy. That's a great name, by the way. Big Sandy's a terrific imagery evoked by that name. His grandparents homesteaded that same property over a century ago. After serving as an elementary school teacher and school board member in Big Sandy, Senator Tester was elected to the Montana State Senate in 1998, where he served 2 consecutive terms. In 2006, he was elected to the United States Senate, where he continues to represent the state of Montana today and serves on the Veterans Affairs, Homeland Security, Indian Affairs, Banking, and Appropriations Committees. Senator Tester is an advocate for small businesses, rural development, and responsible industry, as evidenced by the small business opportunity workshop like this one that he's hosted around the state. Most importantly, he's the proud parent of a Carroll College graduate. His daughter, Christine, graduated from Carroll in 2002, and today is the Behavioral Health Unit Nurse Manager at St. Peter's Hospital right here in Helena, Montana. I know that parents love their children more than they love themselves, so appreciate very much the fact that you entrusted your daughter to our care at Carroll College. Thank you, Senator Tester. It's been a pleasure to get to know Senator Tester over the last several years, and especially to be greeted by Carroll College interns at his office in Washington, D.C., and I'm grateful for the opportunity to introduce him today. Please help me in welcoming Senator Jon Tester.
Well, thank you, Dr. Evans, for that kind introduction, and thank you for the hospitality and allowing us to be here on this beautiful campus this morning. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here. We have a great set of speakers lined up for you today. Before we begin, those of us that can stand, I would ask you to stand and join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us here today. We've got a lot to accomplish this morning, so I will be brief. I want to explain why I put this event together. It is very, very important to be supportive of small businesses here in the state of Montana. And I think that manufacturing is a big part of that. According to the Kauffman Foundation, the state of Montana has the highest rate of entrepreneurial activity in the nation. It's got the highest rate. That's a fact that surprised a lot of people, but not me. Because after years of holding these small business opportunity workshops around the state, I have learned a few things about Montanans. At the top of that list is that we like to start and we like to grow businesses. This is the 14th Small Business Opportunity Workshop that I've held. At our previous events, we have connected more than 2,000 Montana businesses and entrepreneurs with leaders in industries ranging from agriculture to tourism. These workshops are successful because we're able to get the right people in the room at the same time. Today, we will focus on investing in our state's manufacturing industry. Montana is a raw product state. From agriculture to mining, Montana produces what America needs to prosper. Whether it's food on the table or the power to heat our homes, we have the whole package. We also have the business climate needed to support startup companies and existing companies that are looking to expand their operations. Today we're going to hear from a few business owners who have grown their manufacturing businesses and created jobs here in Big Sky Country. We'll also hear from folks who work for the state of Montana, our university system, to learn about the organizations in our state that you can work with to market your products and get your products to market. And finally, we're going to hear from a gentleman by the name of Tab Wilkins from the U.S. Commerce Department's Manufacturing Extension Partnership. This partnership has for decades helped manufacturers grow their businesses. Many of you are very familiar with MEP, but it's a good outfit. So without further delay, let me introduce our first panel, which consists of Montana small business owners. Our panelists are Tom Spica of Spica Welding out of Lewistown, where they design and manufacture specialized industrial equipment. I got to know Tom many years ago when I was on the Montana Manufacturing Extension Board. Paige Darden is our second panelist. She is the marketing director for mytopo.com and Billings, where they provide custom printed maps for professionals and outdoorsmen. It is great to have you here, Paige. And then James Stevens. James is a CEO of Blue Marble Biomaterials in Missoula, where they work to replace petroleum-based products with ingredients made with renewables. I had the opportunity to see James's business a few years back. It has grown exponentially since I was there. And then we have Ashley Moran. Ashley Moran is a Chief Financial Officer for a tribally owned company in Fort Peck, a tribally owned company, Fort Peck Manufacturing, that provides welding and fuel services to clients ranging from small businesses to the United States Army, and I owe Ashley a visit. And then, last but certainly not least, Bill Nicholson. Bill is the Vice President of Dimension 3 Printing in Kalispell, Montana, where they provide three-dimension printing technologies, and it is great to have you here today too, Bill. So with that, we'll start with Tom and just kind of go down the order that I started with. Now, here's the deal for the panelists. I know you've been told already, but probably you're given 15 minutes. If you use less than that, that's okay. Try to keep it to 15 and not a lot over, because I want to give the folks out here an opportunity to ask some questions. So be thinking about that as these folks are telling you their story about what questions can help move your business forward. With that, we'll start with Tom Spica and move down the line. Tom, it's your show.
I'm going to stand up here as I think better on my feet, I think. I'd like to thank Senator Tester for allowing me to come and share our story. I'm very passionate about the future of manufacturing in Montana. My family goes back in central Montana to the early part of the 1900s. And we've been a farm-based family forever. That was what my grandfather was in. He came from Czechoslovakia as a farmer. My dad farmed his whole life, and that's what I saw myself doing. But times have changed over that century, and it wasn't in the cards. And when you look back at the 100 years of time there, we went from having an economy in this state that was very much based and centered around agriculture, mining, timber, the extractive resources, the things we could produce here in Montana. Like it or not, that's changed. It's changed an awful lot. And now tourism has gotten to be a big thing. Agriculture is still big and always will be, but when you look at the number of jobs created through the production of grain and livestock, it's dwindling all the time. If we want to be able to keep people here, keep our kids here, keep people able to provide a living for their family, we have to look at what are we going to do to grow the economy of our state and make for some decent paying jobs. And to me, the answer to that is manufacturing. I'm kind of the poster child of what Senator Tester here is trying to promote, I believe, in Montana. John came out to my shop when I was basically a, 2 or 3 man operation, I think. And I was still operating off the farm. And he was quite enthused with what he saw out in the middle of nowhere. And we were proud of what we were doing, but we also saw opportunity to take that company and grow it. Over the past 13, 14 years, we've grown to a new facility we put up in Lewistown there that allows us to produce the maintenance platforms and work platforms that we specialize in that go into military applications for reset programs in aviation and tactical vehicles. We do a lot of commercial products for such as Bell Helicopter and their manufacturing facilities that they're putting a new factory in. We're designing and building work platforms that interact with their tooling. Satellite companies, right now we've got 4 different projects with satellite manufacturers that we're designing and building these work stands to allow them to access the areas they need to be safely and efficiently. We have begun exporting. This past year, I think we were around 18% of our production went to foreign markets. The year before, it was 25%. We've got products in Israel, Japan, Sweden, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Thailand. And we're doing this from Lewistown, Montana, a town of 6,500 people. Very much rural Montana, small town USA. We employ between 35 and 40 people. Last year we put more than $1 million just in payroll into our local economy. And we're a small company. But we're able to do this today in a way that we never could before. And a big reason for that is technology, basically the internet. I can reach to Sweden, I can reach to Turkey, and they can find me. They can find this one little company in the middle of Montana that is able to produce exactly what they're looking for better than anyone else can. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago, I couldn't have done that. How could I have ever approached the market out there worldwide from Lewistown, Montana? So, I hear retailers, and rightfully so, they complain about how the internet is really infringing on their opportunities to sell. And Main Street, small town Montana is hurting. They very much are hurting. They can't compete with Billings and Missoula and Great Falls, but they can't compete with the internet stores either that can put a product on my door tomorrow morning if I want it. And yeah, that's a sad thing, and we're having to accept the fact that times are changing and retail is changing. But with that downside comes the upside that we also can reach the world from the middle of Montana. We can retail to them, but better yet, we can manufacture and sell our product out there to the world. And You know, it seems like an overwhelming thing to start a business, but you start small and you grow as the opportunities develop. There are so many opportunities to assist small manufacturers from the local economic development groups. We have Snowy Mountain Development in Lewistown. It was extremely helpful in things as basic as helping to understand how to create a business plan, marketing plans, ways to get going. They're actually helpful in securing some low-interest loans at times to get equipment for job creation. Manufacturing has a great asset in the Montana Manufacturing Extension Center, located out of Bozeman, but with field engineers across the state. They come and get to intimately know your operation, what you're doing, what your challenges are, how you can grow to actually accommodate the potential that's out there. And this is a tremendous asset that I can't overstate how much a manufacturer can benefit from working with these folks. They know what they're doing, and they are on your team. One's like the Department of Commercial Services, a federal agency. Kerry Hester is our man here in Montana. The way that his agency and the folks that he works with have helped us understand the complexities of marketing to the world, export issues. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame out there. And how does somebody, I mean, I went to Havre to school, and I got a degree in welding and metals technology. And now I'm running a business that sells $6 million a year. I'm trying to market to the world and navigate the hoops of importation and shipping something clear across the country. How do I do this? Because I have no degree in marketing or in business management. I'm not an engineer as much as I'd really love to be. I have to rely on resources sometimes that are beyond my capabilities, and they are here in the state. Another thing, we've sold, we really cut our teeth on military sales. Our first products went into the military to support aviation, and it's still a big customer of ours, and it always will be. But trying to navigate the challenges of federal contracting is really a challenge, and there's times we would run into some real roadblocks. And I tell you what, our congressional delegation was 100% supportive of us. Anytime we had any kind of an issue, we could call Senator Tester's office, we could call Senator Baucus's office, we could call on our congressional folks back there to actually explain where our challenge was, get advice from them, have them make some phone calls to help facilitate what we need to make happen. They are a resource, and I tell you, there's another thing. A little guy in the middle of Montana that both senators know my name, both senators have been to my operation, both senators are on my fan club. How many people in the United States can possibly say that? You have multi-million-dollar companies that obviously their senator hasn't got a clue who they are. And yet John knows me by name. He insists when I see him, I call him John. Well, this is our senator. This is Montana. It's part of the reason why we do business here. And why I was born here. I wanted to do a business here. I wanted to create an opportunity for me to have a job, but also the people around me in my community. So I really want to encourage people that have the desire, that sense of entrepreneurship, or you have an idea you think could work. Work with these resources. Get out there and give it a try. Take small steps, but steps in the direction you want to go. And you can do incredible things in rural Montana with the help of all the people we got here. So I thank you very much for your attention. I thank you for coming to this, the interest you show in manufacturing and the future of Montana. Thank you, Senator, for allowing me here. Have a good day.
I'm Paige Darden, and my company is MyTopo. We're a company that's now part of a much larger company called Trimble Navigation, that's a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ exchange. I'd like to thank Senator Tester for having us here, and I'd also like to compliment your terrific staff, Senator Tester. I had the pleasure of working with Cheryl and Virginia and Dana, and they're all great at their jobs, and you're lucky to have them, great women on your team. Let me just tell you a little bit of background about my topo. It started in Red Lodge, Montana. Two guys that went to the University of Wyoming graduate school together. One of them fell in love with a lady from Montana, from Red Lodge, and so they ended up deciding to start their business there. And they both had degrees in geography, GIS, urban planning kind of degrees, and were basically started their business to do GIS type consulting work. But as soon as they hung out their GIS shingle, hunters and hikers started walking into the door and saying, "Hey, I'm heading up into the Beartooth and I need a map. Can you make me one?" Because how many people are familiar with topographic maps? Yeah, and they used to only be sold by the USGS, that's the government entity that makes them, by the quad sheet, they were called. And so you had to go down to your local hiking store or backpacking store and find, hope that they had the quads that you needed. And it was, the retail stores were having a hard time stocking them. So, you either ran into a problem there because they didn't have the quads you needed, or you needed to buy so many of them because the area that you were hunting or hiking was going to be, right in the corner, and to cover it, you had to kind of tape them together and piece together these maps. And so people wanted a map that was just of the area that they were focusing on. And so our guys said, "Yeah, we can make you a map." And after a few of those, and realizing that an hour of their day just went by helping their buddy make a hunting map that they weren't going to get paid a lot of money for, they had the light bulb went off and said, "Why don't we make a system where they can make their own maps?" And so they put together, they had all the 56,000 USGS quad maps that cover the US and seamed them together digitally and made it where anybody could go in onto our website, and it's still the same today, to mytopo.com, and make a map. You can center it any place in now the US and Canada, and you can zoom in on it, zoom out on it, get it exactly centered where you want it. You can choose the size of the map, the paper type. You can get it on this great waterproof, tear-resistant paper, and we print and ship it within 24 hours. And so that's how the business started. And we, I loved hearing what Mike said. It's Montanans love helping Montanans. And so when I got involved was just a few months after we put up the system, and they're like, "Hey, how are we going to tell people that we have this system?" And that's when my background had been in policy work in DC. I had worked for the Department of Commerce in promoting e-commerce back in DC, and I read an article. They had gotten a grant from Quest, and I read an article in the paper and called them up and said, "I don't know if my background can help you, but I'd love to try." And they said, "Well, we've built this system now, and we need to tell people about it." And so I thought about it for a minute, and I looked up, who are we trying to reach? We're trying to reach hunters and hikers. Who reaches hunters and hikers? Great storytellers, great writers, magazines, the television shows that the hunters and hikers are watching. And I figured out that the Outdoor Writers Association of America is based in Missoula. And so I called those folks up and said, "I'm working for this little tiny Montana company. We're trying to get going here." We joined. It was a very nominal fee, and we got the list of all the writers in the country that are writing about the issues that, the subject that we are the industry that we're in. And a fella named Bill McRae was an old writer from Montana, and I called him up. I looked at his bio, and he had written for Field and Stream and all the publications that I thought it'd be great to have talking about our maps. And he said, "Yeah, that's pretty neat what you're doing. And so you only have to buy one map. You don't have to buy 4 quads." And yeah, I like that. He says, "Give a call to my friend at the American, at the NRA, at American Hunter Magazine, and tell him I said to call." And so I call up John Zent at the American Hunter Magazine, and because of Bill McRae's recommendation, he let me send him all of our stuff, and he put a big piece in American Hunter Magazine with 1.3 million readers. And our sales took off from there, and we never went below the first day of sales from that article. And then other writers started writing about it, and I could send that article and say, look, what, we were just in American Hunter, and it just took off from there. But it started small. It started with with one Montana helping another Montanan. And when I think about the trade shows we ended up, where we ended up, going to, those were all based on the recommendation of a Montanan saying, hey, here's where you need to be. You need to go to the Shooting Hunting Outdoor Trade Show. You need to go to the Outdoor Retailer in Salt Lake. These are the shows you need to get involved with. Everything that we did started from advice from one Montanan giving advice to another Montanan. And so I encourage you to reach out. I think, if you're not competing with somebody, I think people are always glad to help each other and help pave the road. One of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the challenges and that we faced here in Montana. One is workforce. It's hard to find people. Our whole system is a pretty elaborate e-commerce system. We store 20 terabytes of mapping data. We are open 24/7, 365 days a year. Our system's up and people are buying maps. We now have we've ended up we're now really a conglomerate of 5 different companies. We got bought early on by a company out of Minnesota. We ended up buying ourselves back from that company, but merging the 2 platforms. And then we bought another company out of Maine that did a desktop mapping software product. And then we were bought a couple of years ago by a company that's focused on smartphone apps and turning your smartphone into a GPS device. We're collecting massive amounts of data. We now have all the in addition to the USGS topographic maps and the Department of Canada topographic maps, we also have all the aerial photos from the Department of Agriculture. So we keep up to date aerial photos. We update them every 2 to 3 years. We also have signed a big agreement with a company called Digital Globe. So we have all the same satellite imagery that you see on Google and Bing and Zillow. All of that data we're maintaining in-house now. And then we also have lots of other layers of data that we maintain. So just maintaining our mapping data, maintaining our systems, our servers, to turn that to serve that data up into our products is a pretty big job. We have about 30 employees, and trying to find high-tech employees that are employees with the skills to maintain all of those systems is a challenge. But one thing we've learned is that really what makes a good employee is an employee with character that comes to work every day and that's willing to learn. And we have that in abundance in Montana. And so that's been fantastic that what we've learned is get a good person in there and then send them to training, get them the skills they need. But if you've got somebody that comes to work every day, that works hard and that's willing to learn, they can pick up, the skills they need. So that's been a great thing. It's a challenge and an opportunity, I guess. And the advice I'd have to you is to get on the path, because we would have never imagined that we'd be owned by a publicly traded company 10 years after we got started. The opportunity to buy another company we were able to do with the help of the SBA, which was great. If you've got an idea, start it. Ours started very, very small, and now we have products we never could have even imagined 10 years ago. That wouldn't have even been possible. So get on the path, just get going, and the direction it'll unfold, and you'll find your way. So thanks.
Good morning. My name is James Stevens. I'm the President and Chief Scientific Officer for Blue Marble Biomaterials based out of Missoula, Montana. I talk really fast anyways. I drove in from Missoula at 4 this morning and I've had a lot of caffeine, so this could be very, very interesting. I want to thank Senator Tester and everyone who's put this together. I think these educational opportunities are great because you get to learn all the diverse stories that kind of occur in companies working in Montana, companies that are multinational, doing a lot of different things. Blue Marble's story is probably a lot different than a lot of these companies. While I'm from Montana, I graduated from the University of Montana. I, like many scientists, right around 2002, 2003, had no employment opportunities within probably 500 miles of Missoula to work, so I had to leave the state to go find work. And the moment I left the state with my wife, we tried the rest of our entire time away to come back to Montana. And Blue Marble's story is really a story about kind of tenacity and just going out there and trying to get it done and being as creative as possible with your idea, getting it done. We started out with this ridiculous idea that we're going to go out and build these artificial whales, go out in the ocean and harvest algae and turn it into jet fuel for Boeing. It's a great idea, you know, and from the get-go, really what we did is I went out, I drove all the way out to Nia Bay out on the Olympic Peninsula, which is in the middle of nowhere, probably the most isolated point in the lower 48 states, and bought a 100-year-old fishing boat to try this idea. I had $20,000 and I bought a $19,000 boat and started from there. Yeah, the boat was pretty much a ghost ship and it was probably the most dangerous thing I could possibly do, but that really started our idea and our character of how to do what we do. And a lot of people, you know, if we talk to the engineering firms we engage with and did all this stuff, they always said, oh, it's going to take you $5 million to do this, and you have to do all these things. And really what we learned, because of globalization, it actually created a lot of opportunities. We talk about, oh, the loss of manufacturing, the loss of this. But, you know, those differences and those changes allowed us to do things like go out and source parts and materials from China to build a biorefinery in Missoula, Montana that someone told me was going to cost $10 million to build. The big fancy engineering firms, CH2M Hill, URS, all those, oh, you're going to do this. We did it for $700,000 from scratch, 3 guys, 90 days. So when you look at that, for something they told us was going to cost $10 million to build. So when you look at these kind of opportunities out there, you really have to focus on what you can do and how tenacious you can be. You know, if someone says, you know what, this one tank's going to cost you $15,000, I bet we can go find it for $2,200 delivered in Missoula, Montana. And when you start looking at that, it creates all these new opportunities for people to be able to say, you don't need $10 million to do it. Because how does a Montanan go tell someone with a whiteboard and idea, I need $10 million to build this refinery no one's ever done, ever in the world, and we're going to do it with this tiny, small team? It's really, really difficult. Some of you may be lucky and may be able to do that. The average person can't do that. With that tenacity also creates opportunities. And I think a lot of people, especially in Montana, and I was like this in my early days, shy away from things like press. You know, press is one of the best things you can do in a global economy for a company, especially a small company in Montana. And I used to hear about these stories, like my Topo story, because we did this whole thing. We went out, we harvested algae out of the ocean, and we had an article end up in the UK Guardian in London. One of our major investors is a gentleman from Nairobi, Kenya. I always joke, we're probably the only United States company that took money out of Africa and brought it back to the United States to reinvest in companies and jobs in the United States. And that really shows that this global opportunity and globalism can work both ways. It's not all about loss to other countries from the United States. It's about bringing opportunities in that may or may not have been possible before in these earlier times. Kind of to fill you in on Blue Marble, no, we just started out trying to do renewable jet fuel. At the end of the day, no one wants to pay $500 a gallon for jet fuel, which is, you know, it's doable. You can make all sorts of great renewable things. It was all about focusing on what you can do. And I think the best story we have is we designed this entire system to take algae from the ocean, produce renewable gas, natural gas, produce renewable jet fuel. And in the process, we were making all these other things we had to pull out and throw away to make these products. And I was at this conference discussing renewable jet fuel, and we're talking about this molecule that we make called butyrate. And it's great, it works great as jet fuel, it doesn't boil till 180 degrees C, it doesn't freeze till -70. It's a great performance characteristic for jet fuel. We had this huge presentation on it, and after the conference, kind of this odd, unique gentleman came up to me beforehand and says, you know, how much do you want for your jet fuel? And we were like, oh, we want about $1.70, maybe $1.76 for the jet fuel at scale. It's only going to cost us $200 million to get there. This is this great idea, right? And he's like, how about I pay you $90 a gallon for that? We're like, why? And he's like, that molecule is the smell of blueberries. And it goes into food and flavoring for food. And we're like, well, let's talk more. That gentleman was Frank Mars from the Mars Corporation. And that really led this discovery of changing our ideas on what we focus. And, you know, we were lucky enough to have investors and a board of directors that allowed us to follow kind of the path and the money. So instead of getting stuck on one idea, which is so common with entrepreneurs, right? You get into one idea and you hammer it and you're like, I'm going to make this widget, or I'm going to make ethanol, or I'm going to do whatever. And when you look at that, if you're allowed to actually follow the market and effectively let the market pull you where you need to be from a platform or a technology or an idea, you really can create these opportunities. And, you know, today, Blue Marble Biomaterials is not working on producing jet fuel for renewable jet fuel. What we do is we do renewable materials for the flavor, fragrance, and personal care industries. You know, from that aspect, we came to Montana with 2 people from Seattle. We went from there. We're now 18 full-time employees in 3 years. We put over $7 million in the local economy, investing in, you know, salaries, staff, equipment, design. And I think one of the things we've learned is we have technology. We're manufacturing products for people. We're doing a lot of research and development products for people. What we've learned, though, is there's multiple ways to look at products, even from manufacturing. As you're designing a system out and really focusing on, hey, I want to make this one widget or this one chemical or whatever, what we've learned is not only what you're doing and the product you're trying to make is valuable, your process to get to your product is valuable, and your intellectual property and the ideas you generate during that process can be as valuable as a commodity or an export from the state as the actual product itself. And if you can export things like intellectual property along with your manufacturing products, it removes a lot of the general hurdles you talk about, supply logistics, raw feedstock logistics, all those things. They go away because not only do you have a physical product you're manufacturing a digital product or an intellectual product, and it allows other ways to generate revenue. So if you can sell part of your IP while you're trying to get to your process, it allows you to generate revenue in a way where maybe it takes you $100 million to actually generate revenue from making a product. Your intellectual property really only requires possibly a patent and some consulting time to generate revenue. That revenue allows you to then grow and expand your business in different ways. And really thinking kind of outside that, these realms of normal thought that kind of people get stuck into in kind of this traditional thought pattern is a strong way to go because it allows you to build up in places that are considered rural, isolated, and all that. One of the focuses I really have, and I'm scatterbrained, I understand that, I kind of go around. So if we need to ask questions or do that, we can organize later. But when we look at things, one of the things I've always been passionate about, and I think it affects rural communities, is brain drain. At the end of the day, if there's not opportunities for educated people in their community where they live at, they're going to have to leave. I had to leave to go get my job, and the old joke is, what does a bachelor say in Missoula? Would you like fries with that? The only way to change dynamic is have people bring high-tech jobs back to the area and really do it. And I'm a firm believer in decentralized manufacturing, decentralized production, because that's the only way to disperse jobs and education back into rural communities. And I think that's a valuable point for all of these small business workshops. When we look at what Montana needs, is we're huge from effectively a land area viewpoint. We're decentralized, we're a huge area, but we're also, the joke is, North America's the Saudi Arabia of biomass. If we can bring a lot of those high-tech manufacturing jobs back that can do high-value materials, it doesn't matter whether it's a part from metal that's refined for the aerospace industry or it's a specialty chemical for the flavoring industry made from a pine tree. We can do that. It's kind of funny at some point to tell that story. Really, those high-value materials being produced in rural communities allows us to bring back, and then that infrastructure that supports those jobs is what grows the community. It's the infrastructure to handle shipping and logistics and transport. So focusing on that, being able to take those high-value stuff to the rural community from a small business perspective is great. And the only lesson I can say is, don't let anybody tell you you can't do what you're going to do. If someone says it's going to cost you $10 million to do something, figure out how to do it for $1 million. It's easy to get $1 million, relatively speaking. It's really hard to get $10 million. So, if you can adjust that and change those ideas, that real focus, and, just go after it. There's ways to do it. Go buy that boat and go try to harvest algae. Don't really go do that. It's really hard and a problem. But, use that as a story to kind of focus on other things. And that's all I have. So, thank you guys.
Hello, my name is Ashley Moran. I work for Fort Peck Tech Services in Poplar, Montana. We are a tribally owned 8A certified company, and we specialize in welding and machining services. Our company was started a little bit differently than these other companies. West Electronics actually got a government contract and had a Canadian company all planned out to do the welding services. When it came down to it, it cost more to get the product here than it cost for the actual product. So the accountant knew a guy in welding. So they started their own company and were able to get the product done faster and cheaper since it was right across the street. So that's how Fort Peck Tech got started. And from that, they started from one person, now currently employ 40, and all welders are AWS certified through the state, and they do welding for local farmers. They fix cattle guards to forks on their machinery to fuel system supply points with the government, with the military. Fuel system supply point is when the military goes overseas and they need a place to fuel up or water stations. It's a big system of 7 tricons that provides that for them. And our machining services, we use CNC machines and water jet machines to make signs and specialty work for the oil field service. The oil boom is currently going on in North Dakota, about 50 miles west of us. So with that, we are able to make specialty parts that companies in North Dakota can't make because they're so backed up. So they're willing to travel the 50 miles to get a specialty part, even if it costs a few more dollars, because they can get it a lot faster. And that's all I have.
Good morning. First off, thank you, Senator Tester, for allowing me this opportunity. I can't top some of these stories, especially the guy that goes from jet fuel to food flavor. That's a little wacky. I also want to thank you guys for keeping your presentation short, which means I get to talk longer. Bonus, right? No, I'm just kidding. All right, so I'm the only one that has to have a presentation because I'm not smart enough to remember it. But I got to look at it from the back side to see where I'm at, so bear with me. My name is Bill Nicholson, and I work for a company called In Dimension 3 in Kalispell, Montana. I guess I should flip this, shouldn't I? There we go. I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing. As Virginia first asked me to tell you a little bit about our company, but then really about the 3D printing industry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about us, a little bit about our product, and I'm going to kind of finish with what 3D printing is and kind of where it's going in the future. And I am not a technical expert, and some of you may even know more than I, so bear with me on that. We actually started in 2009. The two original founders, by the name of Jeff and Detlef, they were actually IT guys for the local hospital. And they were watching the late night show with not David Letterman, the other guy, Jay Leno, and he made a comment about how he uses 3D printing to make parts for his antique cars. So that's how the curiosity started. Jeff and Detlef, they started looking into it. That curiosity turned into a little bit of a hobby. That hobby turned into a passion. And they started shipping their first printers in 2010. They were having tremendous success, and a firm out of Philadelphia came to town, started negotiating with them, and actually, as May of 2013, actually bought the company. So that's kind of how they got started. We get a lot of questions like, how did a 3D printing manufacturing company get to Kalispell? Because two guys that had an interest quit their jobs at the hospital and put everything they had into this business, and that's how we got started. Okay. Right now in Kalispell, we have, we have a full R&D department, we have engineering department, and we do all the manufacturing and obviously testing and shipping of our product. We do offer a printing service, but that is more of a service to our community because our real bread and butter is the actual selling of our manufactured product. Right now, I gotta look at my slide. Backwards right away. Right now we're in North America, South America, we're in Australia, we're in Europe. As of yesterday, we're in India. So we got 5 of the 7 continents covered. We're actually just shipped 5 printers to Romania, and that's how we got into India. The folks in Romania are a distribution center for us, and they specialize in 2D printing, and now they brought our 3D product into the market. And they're actually scheduled to come over March 30th through April 6th for technical training. So it's pretty cool, kind of scary, but pretty cool. This is a little bit about our products. These are the 2 products that we currently ship. It's called the Glacier Summit and the Glacier Summit Plus. They're pretty much a similar model, but the Glacier Summit Plus comes with a few more accessories. These guys is called fusion deposition modeling, and some people call it filament deposition modeling. And the easiest way to describe it is, when your kids take that tube of toothpaste and they squeeze out a bead of toothpaste on the countertop, and then they'll go in a circle and they'll put another bead on top of the other one? That's what we do, okay? But we don't use toothpaste. So what we're doing is we're melting plastic, and we lay down a bead of plastic, and it's controlled by a 3D model. And we can lay that baby down in, I'm getting out of sequencer, I think, but we can lay it down in 50 microns to 500 microns. To give you an idea what that means is your human hair is 100 microns in diameter. So we can lay down a bead of plastic as small as a half a human hair up to as thick as 5 human hairs, okay? This guy here has a print volume of a 16-inch by 16-inch by 18-inch print window. And in our price range, that's one of the largest on the market. And that's kind of that's our niche, as we could say. It prints at 60 millimeters per second. I threw that in there because I'm going to explain a little bit more about that and the significance of that on the next slide. But that's how fast we can actually print on our machines. These guys here, the one without the base, we sell that for a little under $6,000. The one with the base is about $7,500. And right now we're shipping, like I said, pretty much all over the United States. And Kerry and I were talking earlier that he's going to help me get into more of our foreign neighbors, I hope, maybe. Here's our new guy. This is pretty exciting for us. This is called our Ideator 12. This is, again, the fusion deposition modeling. And it has a 12-inch by 12-inch by 12-inch print volume. And it has the same resolution, the 50 microns and 500 microns, but it has a print speed of up to 200 millimeters per second, where the one we're producing and selling right now is 60. The thing that gets us exciting about this guy is we designed it, they assembled it, they wired it, they did a few little tweaking on it, and the first job they printed off of it was higher quality and faster than what we're currently selling off the production floor right now. We have 2 of these units up in our R&D lab. Yesterday, we were supposed to get components for 7 more. They haven't showed up yet, so we're going to have 9 of these guys up in our R&D lab being tested with scheduled production for the beginning of April. We have one of our design engineers actually today is starting on the Ideator 24. That's the next product. That's going to have an 18 by 18 by 24-inch print window, and he is actually starting on the design of that starting today. And we're hoping to get that baby out there September Q3 timeframe out into production. So that's a little bit about the company and how we got started, a little bit about our products, a little bit about the new stuff that's coming out. It's pretty exciting, and this thing is 3D printing technology. It's not new. It was invented in 1986. It was called stereolithography, but it's an old technology, but really it's new to the world. And that's some of our challenges is we're dancing with the big boys, and we're in a global market already, and there's definitely challenges with that. So with this next part, I want to talk a little bit about 3D printing and kind of the future of it. And I have a couple different slides here. Talk about 3D printing in the manufacturing industry. If you guys are in a design type house or you have design engineers, typically you will do the design, you will make a prototype, then you got to test it. That vicious production cycle can take you months, years to actually get that design work perfected. Where 3D modeling or 3D printing technology can do for you is it can cut that design time from a couple years, 18 months, down to 6 months or less. And the way we can do that is you guys can design a product, you can come to us or any of our other 3D printing companies out there, and for a couple $100 and in a couple days, we can print you your model. We have a client right now in Chicago that shared with us, they usually spend $2,000 and wait 2 weeks for their prototype. Since we've sold them a 3D printer, now they can do it for $25 and they have their prototype back in 2 days. So that's a huge competitive advantage. And one of the articles that I had read about, it says that companies that can truly adopt this technology, learn how to use it to their advantage, they will have a huge advantage over their competition, and it will definitely change the way they play in their markets. The last little quote down there, I saw this on the internet, and I'm going to use actually a company that we've all heard about, Semi-Tool over in Kalispell, right? 30 years old, roughly, somewhere in there. They have legacy equipment all over the world. And I talked to them 2 weeks ago. They also have spare parts warehouses all over the world. And what they're talking about with this 3D technology, instead of having huge warehouses of spare parts just in case somebody needs one, they put this 3D printing technology on the ground somewhere. Somebody calls up and says, hey, I need a part for my XYZ machine. Not a problem, we'll get it printed for you and we'll ship it at the end of the week. So a huge game changer even in the manufacturing side of it. Okay? This one here, this is architectural. So think about if you had to build a new fancy building, or even if you were building a house, and say you're going to put that $1 million house up on Big Sky. Before you ever break ground, you could actually see what it looked like. You could, in a sense, walk through it with your fingers. Are the rooms big enough? Is it laid out the way I wanted? So before you really dump a lot of cash into it, for a couple $100, you could have a model that you could look at. We're actually talking right now with 2 architectural firms in Kalispell. They just passed a $7 million bond for the local rural schools, and I'm lobbying to print that for them for free, just to get our name out there so they can see what the school's going to look like before they ever drop the money for it. The one down there in the your guys at the bottom left. So go out on the internet and Google 3D printing in concrete. There's a professor at USC. They have taken the 3D printing technology and made it giganto-size, and they are predicting that they can print a fully concrete house in less than 24 hours. And they even have a video on there that shows how they're doing it. And they've taken the exact same 3D printing technology that we use, which is the tube of toothpaste approach, and they're doing it with concrete, and they can do a house in less than 24 hours. That's what they're claiming they can do. Go watch the video. It's pretty interesting. I actually watched it this morning. Okay? This one here. Oh, I threw this in here. I guess it's a game changer, but it's just kind of interesting. You can print in chocolate. You can print in sugars. You can even print a pizza. I'm not sure why you'd want to, but you can print in pizza. But then I got to thinking this morning, I go, wait a minute, what if that's a small pizza shop, and he buys him a printer that can lay down the dough and lay down the sauce, and because it's cheaper than maybe hiring somebody. Now, I know we want to create jobs, but you know, there's a ways to cut your costs and stay in business, right? And maybe printing a pizza is one of them. The other article I was reading on this, and I quote, it said, the ability to print in sugars and chocolate will turn the wedding industry on its ear. So think about, most of you in here had a little porcelain figurine on your wedding cake, right? I did. Well, now you can get little Johnny and Susie printed to look like little Johnny and Susie made out of chocolate on top of the wedding cake. Uh-oh, is that a question or 5? Oh, I have their time too. I only got one slide left. I didn't know she was going like five wedding cakes. All right. This slide to me is mind-numbing, so I saved it for last. And this is how they're using 3D printing technologies in the medical industry. So think about personalized orthodontics or personalized prosthetics, and we're actually working with a young company right now that this gentleman's vision is how most of us have a closet full of clothes. He wants to have a closet full of personalized accessories for his prosthetic leg. And he made the comment, he goes, when I go running, I want to slap on that front fender that's more the athletic. It's the, so I go running. And if I want to go dancing, I have a different one because it makes my pant leg fit different. And you guys, this is all Greek to me. But he's just like, I have this vision, and 3D printing is going to help me get there. The next one down there, he talks about bioprinting. They can print in human cartilage and in human skin tissue. And this is where I think that's really going to be a game changer for the world, in my opinion only. Wake Forest University, my next one down there, they are, I got to look at my slides so I don't get it mixed up. They are printing miniature human organs that they're using to create new viruses, or no, I got the backwards, to create new vaccines to fight viruses. So instead of using animals to test on, they're actually using fully living, functioning human organs that they print to create new vaccines. They even made the comment in this article that if there's ever a threat of a chemical terrorist attack, using 3D technology, they'd be able to create an antidote extremely fast and cheap if they had to. That's pretty amazing. Okay, this next one down on the very bottom there, and I'm almost done, this is an article down, and I think it's kosher, I probably pronounced that wrong, but it's a hospital in the Carolinas somewhere. And they had to do surgery on a 14-month-old boy that had heart defects. Basically, the article talks about how when the surgeons go in to do heart surgery, it's kind of an unknown. They really don't know what they're getting into. And he even says sometimes we have to cut very important and sensitive tissue just to see what lays below it to try to do exploratory surgery to find out how do we fix this heart. He reached out to a local university. He gave them the images of this young boy's heart. They printed a 3D model of the heart. The surgical team studied it prior to the surgery. He said not only did it prepare them for what they were getting into, they were able to fix it faster, and they can almost guarantee, said this young man will never have to have another heart surgery because they did it right the first time because of use of 3D printing. You guys, that gives me chills. That is awesome, okay? The article went on to talk about, so think about the surgery was more efficient, so it took less time. He doesn't have to have a follow-up surgery. So it goes on to talk about how the 3D printing can truly has the potential even to reduce our medical costs, which is near and dear to all of us. So with that, you guys, that's my presentation. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Thank you, Mr. Tester. And thank you.
Can you hear me now? Thanks all the panelists. It's amazing to me that we've got everything from soup to nuts out there going on in Montana. So we appreciate your presentations. Are there any questions? I'm gonna. You guys can think about it. I've got a question. I'm going to ask it. Several of you talked about workforce and how that can be a challenge. I think Paige, you talked about you need somebody with character and somebody who's willing to learn. Those are the most important traits. But what I was wondering is where do you go to find employees? Where do you guys? Where's your point of contact at if you? To making perfumes to all sorts of stuff. So where do you go?
Yes, I'm on there. I'll address that, Senator, in a couple different ways. One, we actually do utilize the state job service quite a bit, and they're very helpful in helping us to identify potentials out there. We also do some internet searching for more specialized positions such as solid modelers, engineers, things like that. But again, this is one of the challenges that we're facing in not only in Montana but in the U.S. and in North America. Canada is finding the same thing. Where the media is telling us the economy's in tough shape, and it is, and we've got terrible unemployment in places. You also will find, if you talk with manufacturers around the state and the nation, that almost everyone has job openings for the right people. If we could find the right skilled individuals, there are opportunities out there, and it's actually limiting our ability to grow. And I'm finding that a lot of it has to do with our culture over the past few years. We've very much encouraged the 4-year degrees from our kids. Our high schools are tracking to prepare for a 4-year college. And no one is really advocating what a career in manufacturing can be. So we're actually starting by identifying to 8th graders, 7th and 8th and 9th graders, some opportunities for careers in manufacturing. We're working with the high schools to do internships with us on their kids and the school to work programs, and educating the counselors and the teachers within the school system as to what we're doing in our communities, and the fact that manufacturing is not working in this dark, dingy place over a hot flame like it used to be. It can be a very rewarding and financially satisfying opportunity. So again, that's one of our challenges, Senator, to try and help promote the training, first off, the people to go into it as a career, but then to facilitate training to give them the basic skills that we as employers need to bring them in and help grow our companies and give them good job opportunities.
Yeah, we've sort of taken an approach that we're having success with is to try and grow our own. We've made friends with the professor at Rocky Mountain College, which we're lucky to be in the same town as, and we've said, just send us your hardest working, brightest kids, and we will turn them we will get them the skills that we need. And so we've had, for the last several years, we've had 2 interns that we maintain, and one of them now is a full-time employee. And we basically get them going on our projects and introduce them to the type of work we're doing. And we give them the flexibility. We send them to classes. We give them the opportunity to take internet courses on the skills that we need them to have. And that's working great for us. They work 20 hours a week, and they can still go to school. And we feel like we're sort of growing our own future employees. If they don't stay with us, that's okay. But if they want to stay with us, we'll sure try to have an opportunity for them. If not, they'll be great employees for one of you guys.
I always joke it's Craigslist, but in all reality, we tap everything that we can, but we have actually gotten probably our best and most qualified candidates finding us from around the state or potentially around the country. From just an online posting on Craigslist, and that's budget minded, right? If it costs you $300 to throw it in a normal newspaper and it's free on Craigslist, I'd rather spend the $300 on training than actually pay it to an advertising company to look for that employee. We also work heavily with Missoula College, the University of Montana, MSU, just saying we have open internships all the time. I'll take 10 interns if people want to get college credit or do that. I'll dedicate staff time and whatever to train them, and then, we like to cherry pick the best of those guys who go through an internship and say, okay, join our team. But generally, I have a policy. I don't care if you're a high school dropout or a PhD with 20 years experience. You're probably going to have to intern with us to see if you're even going to fit with our team, because it's high stress, it's very demanding, and we do ridiculous things. So it's not the right thing for everybody.
I actually have I'm different than probably most. With 3D printing being such a new technology, I have a stack of resumes about this thick, and I have someone walking in almost weekly wanting to go to work for us because it's something new that's different. They saw it on the news, they read it on the internet. But I wanted to make one comment that Tom touched on. I also use the state job service. They help me with the job descriptions. They help me on how to interview. They'll help me interview. They'll help act as the first filter. Yes, there's so many resources out there. The Small Business Development Center, it's a free service that can help give you direction. They're going to point you if you need manufacturing assistance. They're going to point you to the MMC. They're going to point you to PTAC, which I know has a booth over there. And most of those guys are free. There's so many resources out there in this state, it's mind-boggling on which one you need to focus on, to be honest with you.
We usually go by word of mouth. If somebody knows somebody that is looking for a job, they'll usually get a job and get a chance. And as long as you can prove yourself, you'll be able to keep your job, because we train you to do what we need you to do.
Good. Questions? Just raise your hand. Yes, sir. Janice.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Ryan Weiser. I'm with Axiom IT Solutions out of Missoula. So I drove over this morning too, and Highway 12 was a bit sketchy when I got on it. But for one thing, I came over because I went to the one in Missoula and really got a lot of good benefit out of it, and I'd like hearing the stories. We started our business 13 years ago, and we specialize in custom software solutions. So I think with technology today, and a lot of you have mentioned that you have a technology company, but even in the manufacturing industry, I'm sure these days that technology and software plays a huge part in it. And I was just interested mainly in some of the successes you've had with software that help you move along your business, or maybe some specific pain points that you're currently dealing with, or something specifically in the software area.
I'll start with that. One of our pain points is, one of the goals is to create a 3D printer that is truly plug and play. Very similar when you guys go to Staples and buy a HP printer, you plug it in, you install the drivers, and you print. That's the direction that people want to go with our 3D printers. And we have actually been challenged to write drivers that will talk to Microsoft software, that will hook our printers to their software. And right now, our search for those types of individuals, even with Microsoft's help, is the first person we found is in Germany. Even Microsoft said, give us a list of driver developers that we can contact that you've used. Don't have any. So there's one of our challenges right now.
Further questions?
I'll just add a little bit to that. Our company really still on here. Yeah, our ability to quickly respond to customers' needs through solid modeling, computer creation of the products that we're proposing to the customer. And we use a program called SolidWorks that is very affordable to small companies and yet very powerful, where we can create a 3D model on computer of exactly what we're going to be building, from the largest component down to the smallest nut that holds the wheel on. And we can show it to them. They can see exactly what we're talking about. We can put it up against some of their aircraft or their tooling that they have to interface with, and they can see how it's going to fit. Really incredible. And again, that's technology, what it's allowing us to do things we couldn't have done 20, 30 years ago. It allows us to respond incredibly quickly to customers. Challenges in software is always being able to know what's out there, like for scheduling, shop scheduling, and being able to project when you're going to have projects going through the floor or through production, knowing what's available, how to use it. There's challenges there, and again, a lot of us are we're skilled in working with our hands, and it isn't intuitive on some of these softwares of how you actually do make them work. But like it or not, they're a critical part of our businesses today.
Good question, but one of the challenges that we've had is we produce a mapping software, and it's got a diehard following. It's mostly used by search and rescue folks, but they are always wanting us to add bells and whistles to it, and we can do that, but we have to weigh we find ourselves in the trap of sort of developing to the niches and having the noisy few asking us to spend our development time making it work in their particular little use that they need, and we forget our bread and butter customer. We make it too complicated for the average customer to use, and so I find software is challenging in that regard. People expect it to be able to do everything, and we can continue to work on it and make it do everything, but then we make it too complicated for others to use. So trying to strike that balance is always a challenge for us. And then the other thing is I think software can give you a false sense of value. What it took to build our systems in 1999 and to create our mapping software, 99, 2000, 2001, when the bulk of that work was done, with an incredible amount of hours spent to develop these systems and millions of dollars. And now software has made it where a competitor could come in and do what we've done with half the cost. So you can, just because you've spent a lot of money on something doesn't really make it valuable in this fast changing world, because there's always going to be a software that's going to be able to do it faster and cheaper. So you have to really think about where your value is, and it's not always in that technology. Your value is in the customers that you acquire and how well and the loyalty your customers have to you. Your values in sort of your for us, it's maintaining the best mapping data. We can have the software is always going to change, the technology is always going to change, but what we can control is having terrific mapping data and great customer service and a loyal customer base.
All right. Okay, Dana.
My name's Kerry Astor. I work with the U.S. Department of Commerce, and with regard to Senator Tester's question about where you might procure workforce, recently I've been developing or working on one labor project, and I've come across a website which is very good for recruiting of people who've been trained in certain trades by the U.S. military. And so that you might want to check this website out. It's Heroes to Hire, so H2H, the numeral 2, H2H.org. It's actually a pretty good website you can advertise on.
It's working? Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Senator Tester. Thanks, everybody, for being here. My name is Matt Klein. I'm up from Bozeman today. Happy to be here. I'm with a company called InExpress, and we provide international shipping solutions for our partners. We're actually DHL's largest global partner for shipping solutions from documents to freight. And I know for a lot of you who are doing any business, import or export, shipping becomes one of your main pain points, both in terms of getting what you want to or from your customer or your supplier and in your expense. So I'm curious with the panelists, what you look for when you're turning to new countries, importing or exporting, and where you find your shipping solutions, as I think that's probably a common pain point for a lot of people in the room.
When we're looking for shipping solutions, we mainly are working with major multinational companies that can handle all the esoteric kind of bills of lading and all that stuff that really happen. We deal with a lot of, I'd say, very effectively rural or third world countries for a lot of either products going out or materials coming in. And really, we've found small firms have almost no ability to do that. We utilize Expeditors, which is a massive international freight logistics company. So, I mean, from our thing is, it's very difficult to find someone who can figure out how to do a handwritten bill of lading for South Africa and in Missoula, Montana, or anywhere in Montana. So when we look at that, we do really have to rely on massive global partners from that, from a local perspective.
First off, I'd like to visit with you after this. But, quick little story is we ship product, I won't tell you with who, on a pallet, that arrived not on a pallet, and it arrived destroyed, a $4,000 printer. And I talked to them on the phone, and they will not admit the fault because they don't have to, because they have me over the barrel. So a $4,000 printer was destroyed. They won't even ship it back to me for free, and they're giving me $100. So I'd love to talk to you.
We're sort of trying to figure out the whole international piece of it. We ship into Canada. Maps, are stopped by customs a lot of times. They think they could be used for terrorism or something. I don't know. But we find delays in getting our maps shipped to other countries. If we ship, when customers order, anybody from anywhere in the world can order from us anytime. And so we have a fair amount of shipments go out every month to different places, and we have to tell them to expect 15, 20 days to get their map. So that's a challenge for us. I don't know how to get through that. It doesn't seem to matter how we ship it. We usually use USPS or UPS, but trying to get maps through customs and into other countries. We've sort of determined that we're probably going to have to use our company's network of offices and ship within a country to speed it up so we can have the 24-hour print ship deadline and get it out to people quickly.
I can't give a good answer on this one because my solution is to turn it over to the gals in the shipping department and let them figure it out. And I would recommend you do that too, not my shipping department, but it can be a real challenge. And finding freight forwarders that understand all the ins and outs of logistics of getting it into countries. We've been fortunate at times, like I've got a distributor in Japan that also has a North American office in California. We ship to them and they worry about getting it over there. Other times we sell through the foreign military sales, and like in Huntsville, Alabama, at Redstone Arsenal. We sell to them, they worry about getting it over there. So whenever you can do that, it really simplifies matters. But again, through ones like Carrie Hester and different ones that will help you understand things such as insurance for making sure it does get there in one piece and not stolen somewhere along the lines. If it does, then you're protected. It's very reasonable costs on insurance like that. And, we're not really used to that here in Montana. We ship it to something over in, Lewistown, Livingston. It's going to get there. Well, you ship it to Kuwait or Saudi Arabia or Thailand, it could hit the ground and disappear. You don't know where it went. So you have to be pretty careful.
With the shipping logistics thing, I think one of the things that gets overlooked by small businesses is there are a lot of international regulations like ITAR on export controls, military export controls, stuff like that. And without someone helping you understand that, it is incredibly easy to accidentally run afoul of that. And once you do that, there's usually no walking back from if you make the UN or the US military or DOD or State Department upset. So that's one thing you want to make sure you do that correctly right out of the gate.
Oh, excuse me. Anyway, my name is Wade Spolsky. I kind of got a personal question. I'm really interested in the 3D thing, and I find it very interesting, the different avenues you use, especially the topos going through the sporting stuff to get their product out there and stuff. And being a native Montanan, of course, I've always been into hunting and guns and stuff, so as part of your 3D thing and plastics, I was wondering if part of your marketing strategies would include, maybe pursuing, looking at, gun companies, or if your printer is capable of doing parts or stuff, because there are some manufacturers in Montana that make some fine gun products and stuff. And so I was wondering, is that part of your marketing strategy? And I know there's a lot of stuff involved with TSA and all this stuff and making these plastic components or the whole thing. So I was just wondering if maybe you could tell us that's part of your plan.
The short answer is no. I'm proud to say that we have never printed a gun, nor do we plan to, because it's illegal for starters. The 3D printing technology definitely has that ability. And you guys may have read, there's guys that have done that, and they've gotten in trouble for doing it because they were not properly licensed or registered with ITAR, and they got in trouble. Our marketing strategy is what we're focused on is that we're looking really hard at the educational institutions, the high schools, the community colleges, the universities, and we actually offer an educational discount. We're looking at the mechanical design and the architectural design, and now we're starting to dance with some medical industries. We have not singled out the gun industry. Although on my slide, if you paid attention, one of those pictures on the manufacturing slide was a gun component that we could print, but we have not. Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Stephen Thompson, and I have a company called Thompson Precision in Kalispell that we do machining work. And this question is probably directed at you, Tom, because I think you probably have the most experience in this area. But we do, we manufacture anything. We manufacture a lot of gun parts to, we do parts for anyone. But we've been working at getting into the Department of Defense and some of the DLA work, which has been more challenging than any work we've probably tried to get. And that, after so many registrations and forms, you start to wonder if it's worth doing or not. Do you have any thoughts on that? How did you get through that, and do you have any advice there?
Well, you are very correct in that it can be a daunting challenge, and the process of selling to the government, you have to learn to play the game by their rules, and it doesn't always make sense. It can be extremely frustrating because of long time frames on things. There's always been this perception, or at least I'd always heard, that once you have military contracts or federal contracts, you're in the gravy. You hear these $800 hammers and toilet seats and stuff like that, which, from my experience, could not be further from the truth. It's a very cutthroat business out there. A lot of times you run into competitors that aren't extremely ethical, and it can be almost seems like much more challenging than in the commercial market. But the first thing you do have to do is to get registered. It used to be with the contractor registration, the CCR, I think they call it SAMS now. But it basically is registering your company as someone that is able to do business with the military or with the federal government. You also need to learn how to work within their payment system. They have their own ways of invoicing and of paying, and that can be quite challenging. So they actually have online classes and places you can go to, of course not in the middle of Montana, but if you want to fly across the country, you can learn how to work within their payment systems. We watch Fed BizOps, which is a daily posting on the internet of opportunities within the federal system. You can set up to have it report just the things that fit your particular code or the type of work that you do, and you watch for these opportunities that come up, and then typically it's a bid situation where you get the information and you submit a bid to them and hope for the best. But it's again, it can be real challenging. We find with a lot of our projects, we're asked to bid something that may not be awarded for a year or two. Sometimes we're asked to bid on a 5-year term, and we're basically trying to project what's the cost of aluminum going to be 7 years down the road. How much is the impact on inflation going to be on some of our components, or what's our labor costs going to be? And they can be pretty firm in not allowing you much leeway in that. So, and the beauty about government too is that once you've got a contract, at any time they can cancel it at will, with very few ramifications. Now, sometimes they will have to pay you for what you've got invested in some of it, but I mean it's dealing with a whole different group. But that said, they also put out $1 million, $5 million, or $20 million contracts. So it's hard to not look at that pretty seriously.
The other thing that I would say, and on behalf of Tom, that he didn't say is that he never gives up. I mean, he keeps at it, and keeps at it, and he keeps at it, and he keeps at it, and I think that is also a big, big part of it. From my perspective, the federal government likes to go back to the same well all the time. If they do business with somebody, that's where they want to go back. That can be good if you're in that loop, but if you're not in that loop, it's hard to break in. So, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. I'm Dwayne Westover. I represent Bone Dry International. We're a concrete penetrating one-time sealant. And my question is we've got all this interest here, and I just came from the Con Expo in Las Vegas, Nevada. John and I were on the same flight last night when we come into town. And my question is where do you find the specific people that might be looking for your products? When I was in Las Vegas, they had a registration, and you could type in, excuse me, concrete, and then it came up with the classes and the booths and all that kind of thing. Is there anything that we have, like in the state of Montana, that has a database or something like that? Thank you.
Bill, you want to handle that? I know there is a state roster of different manufacturers, and I'm not sure Steve Holland or Kerry may be able to tell you, Todd, who and where. But if you go into basically Google the state of Montana manufacturers and let's see, something else tied to it, you'll find the website, and it's actually a pretty thorough listing. It isn't always kept up real current, but you can find ones that are in different fields, and it's something that you have to sign into. So again, if you're a business, it's not a bad idea to look for it and get yourself listed there, but it's a free service.
The website that Tom's talking about is called the Montana Manufacturing Information System. If you I think if you do a Google search for MMIS in Montana, it'll pop right up. And like Tom says, it's you got to keep your own profile up to date. It's not complete because half of you guys in manufacturing probably are not in it. But that's the closest thing. I'm looking at these guys down here, but I think that's the closest thing the state has, and it's run by the University of Montana. Well, that's probably the problem because I'm an MSU grad. So. No, just kidding. So yeah, do a Google search for MMIS Montana and you'll find it.
Other questions?
My name's Keevan Kelly. I'm a CPA in Helena, and I was just wondering, from the standpoint of starting your business, did you use credit cards and go to the bank in your own money, or and then that next level of going to the bank? What kind of process did you start there? And also, a couple of you have seemed like you've sold the business. What made you do that, and what was the decision process to get there?
Sure. So we started with effectively what they call friends, family, and fools. That's convincing, taking your own money and convincing other people to actually give you money on some crazy idea. We self-funded our first $680,000 of our project. So, I mean, that seems like a lot of money from a Montana perspective. But, if you're looking for investors out in the world, go from there. We raise funds traditional equity capital way. We're a debt-free company. We have no venture capitalists. It's all been private investment up to this date, or contracts, or product sales funding us. But in all reality, you have to have your own skin in the game. Everyone says, "Oh, well, I'm putting sweat equity into this." You have to, even if it's $10, you have to put some of your own money into the game. Otherwise, how are other people going to trust you with money to actually build your own business up? And so, I think from that perspective, it's, start with $10 and go from there.
Yeah, I agree very much with that. Now, we're, again, a relatively small company and privately held. Basically, my wife and I started the company and are the sole owners. Didn't have a whole lot of money to put into it, to invest in, and of course, we started small. But I think the key thing with us was to have a very transparent and very intimate relationship with our bank. We'd been banking with an ag bank in Lewistown when we were smaller, and when we looked to expand and we were needing $1.5 million or so to put up a bigger facility, and starting to look at the need for $500,000 in working capital at any given time, I went to them and I said, I realize that we're starting to get bigger than you typically like, and we're not farmers, we're not ranchers, and I'm not sure you understand this. And they opted to go with us, and our loan officer very much takes the time to understand manufacturing and the challenges and the needs. And honestly, they stuck with us because they're a small community bank at times that I don't think any other lender would have. So, I'm a big advocate of establishing a very strong relationship with your lender. But the SBA is also a great asset. And it's not so much that they loan money, but it's they work with your local lender to guarantee these loans. And a lot of times it's going to be a relatively low interest loan, longer term, so you can term out some of this initial startup debt and spend the next few years paying it back down again in a realistic manner. And again, I think we'll have some representatives here today that will be available to talk with from the SBA, because they really do have, as a matter of fact, there's a gentleman right at the very back there waving his hand, and you can pay me afterwards for giving you a plug there, Wayne. But I mean, they are here to help us. They really are. And you get somebody through that agency that is really in tune with trying to help you succeed. It's quite valuable. So the financing is out there, and like James says, you've got to have your own dog in the fight too. And with us, we pretty much pushed it all into the middle of the table and said, we're all in. This is either going to work or it isn't. And when you do that, the lender knows you're serious, that you're going to do everything you can to make it work.
We're a little bit different than a traditional manufacturing because we do printed maps and software, and our fixed cost for our collateral. All of our products are made from 5 plotters and a DVD copier, and so we were making a lot of revenue off of very little with very little collateral. We didn't own our building, and so when we got ready to buy another business, the banker said, we see you've got great cash flow, but what can you put up as collateral? And some software and 5 plotters and some DVD reproducing technology wasn't enough. And that's where the SBA came in to bridge that, where we were able to get a loan to expand without having a building we could put up as collateral, or even our equipment couldn't be resold. We just didn't have much. So that SBA helped there. I will say that banks in Montana, we found, are very geared towards traditional businesses. And when you come in and say, but look how much money we're making, can't you see that we could pay back this loan? It doesn't matter. It doesn't fit in their formula. Like they still need that traditional. Their formulas are based on having that collateral. So I think that's a challenge. I think in a high-tech community where the banks are more used to seeing people making profits with very little in equipment. And here, I think our banks are still sort of in shock that that can be done. That with software or with very little equipment, you can actually generate a lot of revenue. I think that's one of our challenges here, is to get our banks to understand high-tech businesses.
Other questions? I'm just going to add a little bit onto that. I mean, people have really, really good ideas, and they're really, really good ideas. But a couple things, there was some talk about marketing plans and business plans and all those kind of things. Those have to be done. And then the other thing is the same thing I talked about, Tom, is you have to be resilient. I mean, you have to be willing to keep after it and keep after it and keep after it. It's not easy to do, but it's entirely doable, and the folks up here are prime examples of what can be done. Other questions? Good.
I did want to add one more thing, if I could. One, your last point was about how you get bought by another company, and one thing I will say to that is keep incredible records. When we were approached by the publicly traded company to be bought, they have very strict the Sarbanes-Oxley laws, the SOX laws. We were hearing that word in our sleep. That year when we were being bought, we had to do things like produce our when we filed to be an S corporation with the IRS. We not only had to show that we were that from 10 years before, not only where we had gotten our declaration that we were a recognized S corporation, but they asked for the letter that we had sent to the IRS to ask for the designation. So the amount of every piece of software that we'd ever used to build anything, we had to produce the end user licensing agreement for. We had to prove that we owned or had the ability to lawfully use every single piece of software that we had ever used. The amount of paper that we had to produce to get bought by a publicly traded company because of the laws that they are under was incredible. So your record keeping, spare no expense, keep them, everything.
Any other questions? I think we've got, this is dangerous, but we're going to do it. We've got about 11 minutes to visit and use the facilities and whatever else. I just want to thank the folks up here today, Tom Page, James, Ashley, Bill. Thank you very, very much. I encourage you to visit with these folks now, and we'll have another break after the next panel. And the other business owners that are here today, let's give them a hand. We will be back at 9:45 sharp. 9:45 sharp, we'll start the next panel.